There was a time when racing games weren't even asking players to drive properly. They wanted the exact opposite basically. The fastest route to victory usually involved clipping another car at 200 miles per hour, sending it cartwheeling through traffic while your own vehicle somehow expected with barely enough speed to keep the boost meter alive. In fact, that feeling became the identity of a game most of you know as Burnout. It wasn't about collecting hundreds of different licensed cars or just carefully following racing lines. It was about speed, it was about aggression, creating the kind of spectacular crash that made you immediately want to restart the race just to see if you could pull that exact thing even crazier now. Well, years have passed since the series last received a new entry, yet players still bring it up whenever people talk about arcade races that deserve another chance. Maybe that's because nothing has truly replaced this thing. Plenty of modern racing games look incredible. Very few actually capture that same reckless energy where every second feels like you're barely holding the car together. One close call fills the boost meter, another risky overtake pushes the speed even higher. Then before you even realize what's happening, you're threading through a traffic with just basically fire under your car, praying the next corner arrives 1 second later. So Burnout always lived right on that edge between total control and complete disaster. Maybe that's why, and that's exactly where another game should probably begin, is what I'm saying. First of all, EA Games has not officially announced a brand new Burnout. Criterion Games, the studio most closely associated with the franchise, is currently supporting other major EA projects, including the Battlefield series, and there's been no confirmation that a new Burnout is in development. Even so, the man has never really disappeared. Every time arcade racing comes up, a Burnout almost immediately enters the conversation because people still remember how different it just felt compared to everything else, especially Burnout Paradise. The first thing a new Burnout absolutely has to understand is that speed should never feel comfortable. Modern hardware makes it possible to build enormous roads filled with traffic, weather effects, dense environments, but none of that even matters if driving becomes predictable. Players should constantly feel like they're making split-second decisions at impossible speeds. Missing another vehicle by inches should all feel just as satisfying as winning the race itself, because that's where Burnout always created its excitement. The game rewarded confidence, but it punished hesitation very hard. Watching crashes unfold was never just visual spectacle either. They became part of the experience because every collision looked unpredictable. Cars twisted around guardrails, slammed through intersections, bounced across highways, scattered debris in every direction. Look, today's technology could make those moments dramatically more believable without slowing the pace. To a dangerous level, in fact. Metal crumbling realistically, glass shattering differently depending on the impact, entire sections of vehicle just basically tear away while pieces scatter across the road, creating fresh hazards for everyone still trying to reach the finish line. The important thing is keeping races moving. Burnout has never been about sitting through long crash replays, it has always been about getting right back into the action before your pulse has a chance to slow down. The road themselves deserve just as much personality as the cars. One of the reasons Burnout Paradise became so memorable wasn't simply because it offered an open city. Every highway, every tunnel, mountain road, airport runway, a industrial district, and a coastal road encouraged players to drive differently. A future game could take that philosophy much further by building environments that constantly change the rhythm of every race. Heavy traffics, give the whole thing a bit more difficulty. Snowy mountain passes, coastal rifts, rain-soaked freeways, and brightly lit city centers all create completely different challenges without relying on artificial gimmicks. In fact, another thing people sometimes forget is how satisfying Burnout's boost system really was. You didn't earn speed by waiting for a meter to recharge. You earned it by driving like someone who had absolutely no fear, drifting around blind corners, narrowly avoiding traffic, jumping over intersections, surviving impossible situations gradually rewarded players with more speed. That system turned good driving into aggression driving, encouraging risks that most racing games actively discourage. So a new Burnout should absolutely preserve that philosophy because it's one of the biggest reasons the series still feels unique today. Obviously, multiplayer has changed dramatically since the franchise last received a major release, and that's another opportunity just waiting to be explored. Burnout shouldn't chase battle royale trends or seasonal live service formulas because that exists basically everywhere right now. Instead, it should focus on what has always made the series fun. Putting skilled drivers together on some dangerous roads where anything can happen, large online races, elimination events, road rage modes, co-op stunt challenges, and dynamic traffic systems, maybe even pay-to-win stuff that matter a bit. One thing that deserves much more attention, in fact, is the AI. Older Burnout games already featured some aggressive opponents. Modern processing power, though, allows rival drivers to become far more convincing. Instead of just following predetermined racing lines, they should actively react to changing situations. Some drivers become reckless when they're behind, others patiently wait for mistakes before making the move. Rivalries naturally develop over multiple races as certain opponents begin targeting the player, while others become surprisingly reliable allies against more dangerous competitors. Those small little behaviors make every event feel slightly different without players ever noticing even why. And music has always been another essential ingredient in these games. Burnout never relied on quite orchestral soundtracks because silence simply doesn't fit in a game moving at 200 miles per hour. High-energy rock, electronic music, and modern alternative tracks, although you could say Burnout Paradise did the opposite, it gave the player a sort of a unique experience by adding some classic musics. Customization doesn't need to become as overwhelming as modern racing simulators though. Burnout obviously has always been about getting behind the wheel quickly. Rather than spending hours adjusting suspension, geometry, or tire pressure stuff, players come to Burnout because they want to drive, not because they want to manage spreadsheets. In fact, one area where the series could genuinely surprise players is weather. Rain shouldn't simply make the road just look wet. Heavy storms should reduce visibility while forcing traffic to behave differently. Dense fog hides approaching intersections until the last possible moment. And snow gradually changing grip levels. None of these systems need to become realistic simulations, they just simply need to make every race feel alive. Perhaps the biggest opportunity of all this is remembering that Burnout has never been about realism and that it's always been about emotion. It's about the feeling when the boost meter is completely full, engines screaming, traffic's flying past on both sides, and somehow you're still finding tiny little gaps that shouldn't even exist. It's about surviving situations that look impossible, laughing after some spectacular crash, immediately wanting another attempt because you know you can drive just a little better next time. That's right, that's why people continue asking for another Burnout after all these years. Not because they want another realistic racing sim, not because they need the biggest map or the longest career mode, they just want that incredible feeling of barely hanging onto control while the game constantly dares them to go even faster. Very few franchises have ever captured that sensation as perfectly as Burnout did. If Electronic Arts, EA, has ever decided it's finally time to bring the series back home, the blueprint is already sitting there waiting. Keep the driving simple but incredibly satisfying, make crashes spectacular without interrupting the pace, fill the roads with traffic that constantly force players to make impossible decisions, build environments that encourage speed instead of limiting it. It was about making players smile every time they somehow survived a situation that should have ended in a complete disaster. That's a feeling no other racing game series has ever actually quite managed to recreate.